Welcome to the greatest horror story humans ever wrote. Except this one isn't fiction. This is real. This is killers we created. Mutant crocodiles. You dumped toxic waste in their rivers, and now they're bigger, angrier, and practically bulletproof. Good luck swimming, hybrid super snakes. What happens when Burmese pythons and Indian pythons hook up in Florida's swamps? A mutant serpent invasion that's eating everything, including alligators. Monster boars, nuclear radiation, and hunting bans have turned wild pigs into tank-sized geniuses. They're smarter than your dog, and twice as aggressive. Sharks gone rogue. Overfishing left them starving, so now they're getting experimental, testing humans as potential snacks. Oops! Super rat cities made them immune to poison, resistant to traps, and now they're solving puzzles like evil scientists. They're coming for your pizza. Cannibal bears, climate change took their food, so now they're eating each other. And possibly you. Sleep tight. Frankenstein wolves. We wiped out the weak ones, and now the survivors are bigger, smarter, and forming mega packs. Also, they've figured out teamwork. We created them. We made them stronger. And now, we might be next. Welcome to the nightmare we built. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Once upon a time, crocodiles were already perfect killing machines. Millions of years of evolution had shaped them into prehistoric nightmares with bite forces that could crush steel and patience levels that would make a Buddhist monk jealous. They were nature's original ambush assassins, lying motionless for hours, waiting for an unsuspecting victim to make one wrong step. But then humans happened. And because humans can't just leave well enough alone, we decided to dump toxic waste, industrial sludge, and radioactive surprises into their watery homes. Turns out that wasn't our best idea. Because while humans struggle with a single fast food meal sending them into a food coma, crocodiles have been dining on literal poison and evolving into something far scarier than their ancestors ever dreamed of. Welcome to the age of mutant crocodiles, nature's most terrifying comeback story. If you've ever wondered whether animals can develop superpowers from pollution, crocodiles are here to provide an unsettling answer. Unlike humans, who start developing concerning skin rashes after 2 minutes in a questionable swimming pool, crocodiles are thriving in rivers that should be illegal to look at. Take, for instance, the Ganges River in India, a sacred body of water that also happens to be a dumping ground for industrial waste, sewage, and occasional human bodies. Scientists expected the mugger crocodiles living in this chemical nightmare to die out. Instead, they got bigger, meaner, hungrier. Researchers were baffled. Theoretically, heavy metals like mercury and lead should have turned these crocs into lethargic, sickly reptiles with vitamin deficiencies and sad little immune systems. But no. Instead, their bodies had adapted, developing a freakishly high resistance to toxic elements. Their skin, already designed like a medieval knight's armor, became even tougher, absorbing pollution like a sponge and using it as some kind of biological power-up. Their immune systems, unkillable. While humans lose battles against the common cold, these mutant crocs shrug off infections, parasites, and even wounds that should have been fatal. And it's not just India. In Florida, crocodiles in the Everglades have been absorbing pharmaceutical drugs, pesticides, and microplastics like they're taking daily supplements. Scientists found traces of Prozac, birth control, and even cocaine in their bloodstream, meaning we now have drug-fueled, emotionally stable, and possibly hyperlibidinous crocodiles. If that doesn't keep you up at night, I don't know what will. Speaking of horrifying nature experiments that were never meant to happen, let's take a little field trip to Chernobyl. Now you might be thinking, wait, there aren't crocodiles in Chernobyl. And normally you'd be right. But nature, as always, has other plans. Since humans decided to nuke their own backyard in 1986, the abandoned cooling ponds around Chernobyl have become an accidental Jurassic Park. In the years following the disaster, alligators and crocodiles, likely abandoned exotic pets or escapees from shady zoos, found their way into these waters. Now, thanks to radiation, their offspring are growing at freakish speeds, displaying bizarre mutations and developing alarming intelligence. Imagine a crocodile the size of a small car that can also solve basic puzzles. Congratulations, that nightmare is real. While official reports claim there's no significant radiation impact on local wildlife, that's a fancy way of saying we don't know and we're too scared to find out. What we do know is that animals in high radiation zones tend to develop strange adaptations. Some scientists speculate that if these radioactive crocs survive long enough, they might evolve into a new, hyper-resistant superspecies, capable of withstanding extreme environments that would kill anything else. You know, like a future nuclear apocalypse. Basically, if the world ends tomorrow, crocodiles will still be here. Bigger, stronger, possibly glowing in the dark. It's not just toxins and radiation that are pushing crocs into supervillain status. It's overfeeding. Thanks to human stupidity and bad waste management, crocodiles in certain areas are growing way larger than nature ever intended. Take Brutus, a legendary 18-foot saltwater crocodile from Australia. This monster, already one of the biggest crocs on record, was found eating bulls whole. Not just biting them, consuming them in one go. The reason? Unregulated feeding from local farms. Brutus isn't alone. Around the world, gigantic crocs are showing up in heavily polluted, human-adjacent waters, where people conveniently dump livestock, dead fish, and sometimes entire butcher shops worth of waste. In the Philippines, a massive crocodile named Lo Long measured 20 feet and was so big he had his own zip code. He was caught after reports surfaced of a mysterious predator devouring water buffalo. Once captured, scientists found entire bones, undigested, inside his stomach. This wasn't an ordinary crocodile. This was a biologically supercharged beast, feasting on an all-you-can-eat buffet of human waste and livestock. Moral of the story: if you feed crocodiles like they're sumo wrestlers, don't be surprised when they start eating like them. Here's the kicker: crocodiles aren't the villains here. They didn't ask for a radioactive bath, a pharmaceutical buffet, or a nuclear experiment gone wrong. Humans did that, and instead of dying off like weaker species, crocodiles flipped evolution the middle finger and decided to become even more terrifying. Scientists now believe that given enough time, crocodiles could outlive humanity and continue evolving into something even more dominant. With their newfound resistance to pollution, increased intelligence, and expanding size, they might become the apex species of the post-human world. Imagine a future where massive, glowing crocodiles roam abandoned cities, ruling over the remains of human civilization. Wouldn't that be the greatest plot twist in nature's history? So the next time you think about dumping waste into the river, just remember, somewhere out there, a crocodile is waiting, and it's getting stronger. Final thought: humans accidentally created the ultimate predator. Now the question isn't how to stop them, but whether we even can. Florida is known for many things: theme parks, hurricanes, retirees who drive at the speed of continental drift. But now, it has a new, far more terrifying claim to fame: a full-blown invasion of hybrid super snakes. That's right. While other places worry about crime rates or traffic congestion, Florida is dealing with a reptilian apocalypse, thanks to the Burmese Indian python hybrids that have taken over the Everglades and decided that the entire state is now their personal buffet. This is not some low-budget horror movie plot. This is real. And the scariest part: humans made this monster. You'd think that after Jurassic Park, people would have learned that mixing powerful predators in an unfamiliar ecosystem is a recipe for disaster. But no, the 1980s and 90s were a special time, full of questionable fashion choices, experimental haircuts, and apparently the worst exotic pet ownership decisions of all time. At some point, someone, probably a guy named Chad with zero impulse control, thought it would be a brilliant idea to import Burmese pythons as pets. You know, those gigantic snakes from Southeast Asia that grow over 20 feet long, weigh more than an NFL linebacker, and can swallow a deer whole. Then someone else thought, hey, why stop there? And brought in Indian pythons, a slightly smaller but far more aggressive species with an attitude problem. And because Florida is basically nature's chaotic experiment lab, these two species eventually found each other in the wild. Now, in a twist that no one saw coming, except literally anyone with common sense, these two species have interbred, creating a super snake that combines the worst traits of both parents: the massive size and strength of the Burmese python with the aggression and adaptability of the Indian python. The result? A genetic horror story that Florida is now desperately trying and failing to control. Here's the fun part: these hybrid pythons aren't just surviving in Florida, they're thriving. Normally, an invasive species struggles a bit when introduced to a new environment. It takes time to adapt, find food sources, and figure out how to not immediately get eaten by something bigger. But these Frankensnakes, they skipped the awkward phase and went straight to becoming the apex predators of the Everglades. First, let's talk about their size. Burmese pythons are already capable of reaching over 20 feet, but these hybrids are displaying even faster growth rates, with some specimens doubling in size far quicker than their purebred counterparts. That's right, science accidentally created snakes that level up like video game bosses. Then there's their hunger. These snakes are eating literally everything in their path. Researchers have found them with the remains of deer, alligators, birds, raccoons, possums, and even other pythons inside their stomachs. If it moves, it's on the menu. Some of these snakes have eaten so much in one sitting that their stomachs literally exploded, which is probably the closest thing nature has to a food coma gone horribly wrong. And because no horror story is complete without an out-of-control reproduction rate, these hybrids are breeding faster than normal Burmese pythons. A female python can lay up to 100 eggs at a time, and with no natural predators, their numbers are multiplying faster than Florida can handle. In a normal, balanced ecosystem, a super predator like this would have some kind of natural enemy. Lions keep antelope in check. Wolves balance deer populations. But in Florida, there's literally nothing standing in the way of these snakes. Alligators were supposed to be the Everglades' ultimate apex predator. You'd think that a prehistoric armored tank with jaws strong enough to snap bones like breadsticks would be able to handle a snake infestation. But instead, the pythons are actually eating them. That's right. The predator that has ruled Florida's swamps for millions of years is now losing to a snake that got here last century. Scientists have even found pythons with entire adult alligators inside them, stretched out in a horrifying display of what happens when nature decides to get creative with its food chain. Even worse, these hybrid pythons are more adaptable than pure Burmese pythons. While normal Burmese pythons struggle in cooler temperatures, these hybrids are handling Florida's occasional cold snaps just fine. This means they're no longer stuck in the Everglades. They're spreading north into new territories, and if they keep adapting, they could invade other parts of the US. Scientists are genuinely worried that, given enough time, these pythons could establish populations in Georgia, Alabama, and beyond. Yes, America could have a full-on giant snake crisis in multiple states, because Florida wasn't enough of a disaster zone already. Now you might be thinking, okay, just get rid of them. Call in the hunters, set some traps, problem solved. And to that, Florida would like you to know that they've been trying hard. The state has thrown everything at this problem. Licensed hunters, bounty programs, even an annual python hunting challenge, where people compete to see who can catch the most, and yet the snakes are winning. Why? Because they are masters of hide and seek. These hybrid pythons are nearly impossible to track. Their natural camouflage is so good that even thermal imaging drones struggle to find them. By the time one is spotted, it has probably already laid another 100 eggs. Florida's best snake hunters often describe the experience as like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the needle is 20 feet long and can strangle you. And remember, these things are smart. They're learning. They're adapting to human hunting tactics, changing their behavior to avoid traps and evade detection. Some have even been observed migrating to more remote areas the moment humans start closing in. In short, this isn't just an invasion. This is an organized reptilian uprising. At this point, Florida is pretty much one hurricane away from being declared the first official snake republic. Experts are genuinely worried that if these hybrids continue expanding, we may never be able to get rid of them. Their population is already estimated to be in the tens of thousands, with new reports of sightings outside of the Everglades appearing every year. The only real solutions left? Either find some genetic kill switch, which sounds like the plot of a sci-fi movie that ends badly, or introduce a new predator that can control the snake population. Except there isn't one. Unless Florida decides to import Komodo dragons, which, knowing Florida, is not off the table. Until then, if you ever visit Florida and hear rustling in the bushes, just assume it's something that could eat you whole. Because thanks to human stupidity, it probably is. Final thought, Florida was already wild enough. Then we went and gave it giant, super-breeding, alligator-eating snakes. This is why we can't have nice things. If you ever thought the worst thing about wild boars was their bad attitude and unfortunate habit of jump-scaring hikers, then you haven't been paying attention. Wild boars have been a nuisance to farmers and unsuspecting campers for centuries, but thanks to a bizarre mix of nuclear radiation, human hunting restrictions, and some good old-fashioned crossbreeding madness, they're no longer just a problem. They're an unstoppable force of nature. In some parts of the world, they've grown bigger, meaner, and disturbingly smarter. In other places, they've absorbed actual radiation and survived. And worst of all, they're multiplying at an alarming rate, ignoring human attempts to control their numbers like an army of furry, tusked terminators. Welcome to the boar-wolf hybrid apocalypse, where nature's most underrated menace is now one of its most terrifying predators. Let's start with the most dramatic of the bunch, Chernobyl's radioactive boars. You'd think that after one of the worst nuclear disasters in human history, the area would be an uninhabitable wasteland of doom. And for humans it is. But for wild boars, it's paradise. After the 1986 Chernobyl explosion, most of the local wildlife either died off or suffered horrifying mutations. Looking at you, three-eyed fish. But wild boars, they looked nuclear fallout in the face and said, "Is that all you've got?" Instead of dying, they thrived. With humans gone and no one to stop them, they moved in, took over the abandoned cities, and turned the whole area into their personal boar utopia. Now, here's the weird part. Studies have shown that these boars have an insane amount of radioactive cesium-137 in their bodies, somewhere around 300 times the safe limit for human consumption. But instead of dropping dead or growing extra legs, which, let's be honest, would have made them even scarier, they seem perfectly fine. Somehow their bodies absorb and tolerate radiation in ways that shouldn't be possible. And they're not just surviving, they're thriving and expanding. Chernobyl's boars aren't staying put. They've started wandering outside the exclusion zone, bringing their mutant genes into the general boar population. Imagine going hunting, thinking you've bagged a regular boar, only to find out later that your dinner glows in the dark. This leads us to a rather unsettling question. If these boars aren't affected by radiation, what else are they capable of? Because, spoiler alert, it gets worse. As if nuclear boars weren't enough, Europe has an entirely different problem. Boars that are getting too smart for their own good. Scientists have been tracking an increase in wild boar-wolf hybrids, and it turns out that mixing boar aggression with wolf intelligence is a truly horrifying combination. You see, wild boars have always been a little too smart for comfort. They're excellent problem solvers, capable of figuring out how to open gates, dodge traps, and even trick hunters. But in recent years, reports from Germany, Italy, and Poland suggest that some boars are exhibiting behavior that is beyond normal boar intelligence. They're organizing in larger groups, coordinating ambushes, and changing their movement patterns to avoid human detection. And the biggest theory, they've been hybridizing with wolves. Wolf-boar hybrids aren't a sci-fi movie idea. They're very real. In areas where both species share the same habitat, scientists have noticed that some boars are growing leaner, faster, and more tactical in their hunting strategies. Instead of relying on brute strength and reckless charges, these hybrids seem to have picked up pack hunting behavior from their wolf relatives, which, to put it bluntly, is a terrifying development. Normal boars already weigh up to 660 pounds and have razor-sharp tusks that can gut a grown man. Now imagine that, but smarter, faster, and operating in organized groups. There are confirmed reports of these hybrids taking down large livestock, something that normal boars don't usually do. Some hunters have even claimed that boars have learned to circle back and ambush people who try to shoot them, which means we're one step away from having boars that understand battlefield tactics. If that doesn't give you nightmares, I don't know what will. So we have radioactive boars in Chernobyl and wolf-brained super boars in Europe, but surely this problem is under control, right? Wrong. If anything, it's getting worse. Wild boars have a ridiculously high reproductive rate. A single female can produce 6 to 12 piglets per litter, and they breed all year round. This means that even if hunters take out thousands, the population bounces right back. And here's the real kicker. Some places have banned boar hunting entirely. That's right. In some parts of the world, due to animal protection laws or hunting restrictions, wild boars can't be controlled the traditional way. This has led to explosions in population, with some areas seeing boar numbers increase by over 400% in the last few decades. Japan, for example, had a wild boar crisis after the Fukushima disaster. With farmers abandoning land due to radiation fears, boars moved in and took over entire villages. In France, Germany, and Spain, boar attacks on humans have increased dramatically, with cases of boars storming through city streets, breaking into houses, and even attacking people at gas stations. And in the US, Texas and California are dealing with an absolute boar nightmare. Feral hogs, some of which are descendants of escaped farm pigs that interbred with wild boars, are spreading across the country, destroying crops, wrecking ecosystems, and even invading suburbs. There have been cases of wild boars running onto highways, causing multi-car accidents, and even charging at police officers. And remember, these aren't even the radioactive or wolf hybrid ones. These are just regular American feral hogs, and they're already out of control. What happens next? At this point, humanity has two major problems with wild boars. First, the nuclear-powered, radiation-resistant ones that are spreading across Europe. Next, the wolf-brained, tactically advanced ones that are turning into apex predators. And our solution? We don't have one. Hunting isn't enough. Traps don't work on the smart ones. Poison isn't an option because it could kill other wildlife. And biological control? We'd need something like a boar-specific virus, which sounds like another terrible idea that will backfire spectacularly. The reality is that wild boars might outlast us all. They've already proven immune to radiation, are adapting to our hunting techniques, and are spreading faster than we can control. They are quite literally becoming the perfect survival machine. So the next time you see a boar in the wild, just remember, you're not looking at just another wild animal. You're looking at a future overlord of the post-human world. Final thought. If we don't figure out a way to stop them soon, we won't have to worry about AI taking over the world, because the boars will beat them to it. For most of human history, sharks have been the ocean's misunderstood landlords, chilling in the deep, eating fish, and minding their own business, while we spread ridiculous myths about them being man-eating monsters with a taste for surfers. Truth be told, sharks never cared about humans. We're not their preferred meal, and we certainly don't taste as good as a plump, juicy seal. But something has changed. Sharks are acting differently. They're coming closer to shore, taking more risks, attacking more people, and behaving in ways that are making marine biologists question everything they thought they knew about these creatures. Is it a sudden wave of shark villainy? Some kind of fish-based uprising? No, it's something far more terrifying. Human stupidity. Because thanks to overfishing, we have forced sharks into a desperate survival mode, making them bolder, hungrier, and willing to bite anything that remotely resembles food, including us. Sharks have been perfectly designed killing machines for 400 million years. Unlike us, they never needed to invent tools, fire, or questionable reality TV shows to become apex predators. Their razor-sharp teeth, torpedo-shaped bodies, and near-psychic ability to detect the faintest drop of blood in the water ensured their place at the top of the ocean's food chain. But here's the thing about top predators: they only thrive when their prey is abundant. Take away their food source and suddenly, even the most well-adapted hunter gets desperate. And guess what? That's exactly what we did. Over the last century, humans have plundered the ocean's fish stocks like a buffet, with no closing hours. Industrial fishing methods, trawling, long lining, and good old-fashioned recklessness have devastated shark populations' favorite meals, such as tuna, sardines, and mackerel. Up to 90% of large fish stocks are now depleted. That's like someone walking into a lion's habitat, killing off all the gazelles, and then wondering why the lions are suddenly looking at tourists like they're a snack pack. Sharks are now finding less and less food in their natural hunting grounds. The once abundant feeding zones are turning into empty blue deserts, forcing these predators to venture into places they would normally avoid, like shallow coastal waters full of humans. But here's the real kicker. Sharks are adaptable. When their usual menu disappears, they start experimenting. And unfortunately for us, that means they're testing new potential food sources. For decades, the old saying has been, "Sharks don't want to eat you." But in recent years, sharks have been behaving like they very much do. Shark attacks are rising, and while the numbers are still relatively low compared to other animal attacks, for instance, hippos kill way more people per year than sharks ever will, the pattern is what's alarming. Certain species, particularly great white sharks, tiger sharks, and bull sharks, are displaying behavior that suggests food stress is making them far more aggressive toward humans than ever before. Take great white sharks, the ocean's most famous and feared predator. Historically, these sharks did not linger near populated beaches. Their natural preference was deep, offshore waters where they could hunt large marine mammals in peace. But as fish populations have dwindled, more great whites are showing up near tourist beaches, swimming closer to shore, and even investigating humans with more than just curiosity. In places like California, Australia, and South Africa, attacks by great whites have noticeably increased in the last decade, and many of these cases involve sharks taking exploratory bites, then sticking around instead of immediately swimming away. Then there's the tiger shark, nature's garbage disposal unit. Unlike the great white, which at least has the decency to be picky about its meals, tiger sharks will eat literally anything. They have been found with license plates, car tires, and even whole chickens wrapped in packaging in their stomachs. And now, with food shortages affecting their usual diet of fish and sea turtles, they've started shifting their hunting habits. More tiger sharks are being seen actively patrolling shallow, human-populated waters, testing out surfers, swimmers, and even boats as possible food sources. And finally, we have the bull shark, the most terrifying of the bunch. Unlike great whites and tiger sharks, bull sharks don't need the ocean to cause trouble. They can swim into freshwater rivers, lakes, and even city canals without issue. Bull sharks have always been aggressive, but recently they've been seen in areas where they never used to be, acting far more confrontational than before. Scientists are now concerned that food shortages are making bull sharks territorial and more prone to attacking humans simply because they have no other options. Despite all of this, let's be clear, humans are still the real villains in this story. For every human killed by a shark, we kill over 100 million sharks. That's right, 100 million. Most of this comes from the horrific practice of shark finning, where sharks are caught, their fins are sliced off, and they're tossed back into the ocean to drown or be eaten alive. Why? Because shark fin soup is considered a luxury dish in some parts of the world, even though it has zero nutritional value and tastes like absolutely nothing. Beyond that, thousands of sharks are accidentally caught in fishing nets every single day. Even protected shark species end up as bycatch, meaning they get tangled in nets meant for tuna and other fish. Many of them die before they're even noticed. And yet, despite everything, sharks are still here. Still fighting, still evolving. And now, because we've robbed them of their natural food supply, we're forcing them to become more dangerous than ever before. If humans don't change their ways, the problem will only get worse. As fish populations continue to collapse, sharks will have no choice but to take even greater risks. More great whites will patrol beaches, more tiger sharks will test unfamiliar prey, and more bull sharks will start treating rivers like personal hunting grounds. The solution: we need to stop treating the ocean like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Overfishing regulations need to be enforced, marine ecosystems need time to recover, and if we want sharks to leave us alone, we need to give them back their real food. Otherwise, we're training an entire generation of sharks to think of humans as a potential meal. So, if you were hoping to enjoy a peaceful swim in the ocean without wondering if a starving great white is about to ruin your vacation, it might be time to start worrying about overfishing before sharks start worrying about eating you. Final thought. We spent decades telling sharks they don't eat humans. Then we starved them and gave them no choice but to try. If this isn't the most ironic twist in ocean history, I don't know what is. Once upon a time, rats were just humble scavengers, content with nibbling on forgotten pizza crusts and darting through subway tunnels like tiny, disease-ridden ninjas. They were nature's tiny garbage disposal units, always lurking in the shadows, surviving on whatever scraps humanity left behind. But over the years, thanks to urbanization, reckless pest control, and a series of truly catastrophic human mistakes, we have accidentally created a new breed of rat. One that is bigger, stronger, smarter, and disturbingly well organized. These are no longer just regular rats. No, these are super rats. The unkillable, poison-immune, problem-solving, teamwork-loving nightmare rodents that are now taking over major cities and abandoned towns alike. Scientists have been observing alarming changes in rat behavior, from their growing intelligence to their ability to evade traps, resist poisons, and even work together in coordinated attacks. It's not just a pest problem anymore, it's a rat revolution. For centuries, humans have been at war with rats. But if history has taught us anything, it's that rats are winning. We have poisoned them, trapped them, drowned them, electrocuted them, and even deployed trained rat-hunting dogs. And yet, they just keep getting stronger. The problem started when humans got too good at using rat poison. Back in the day, a simple dose of warfarin, a common anticoagulant, was enough to take down a rat, and entire populations could be wiped out with a well-placed bait station. But then something horrifying happened. The surviving rats started developing immunity. In places like the UK, scientists have discovered rats that are completely resistant to traditional poisons, meaning that the only thing a modern rat trap accomplishes is giving them a free snack. In some cases, poisons have made the situation worse. By eliminating weaker rats, only the strongest and most adaptable ones survived, leading to a new generation of mutant super rats that laugh in the face of exterminators. And then there's the size issue. While the average city rat used to weigh half a pound, reports are now coming in of rats the size of small cats. In places like New York, London, and Paris, people have spotted rats so large that they can no longer squeeze into traditional rat holes, forcing them to dig through concrete walls and subway systems instead. Some of these rats have been found with muscles so dense that they resemble tiny bodybuilders, as if they've been hitting the gym between meals of discarded fast food. Scientists believe that urban rats are experiencing a form of natural selection that is making them bigger, stronger, and far more resilient than their ancestors. And unlike other animals that struggle in human environments, rats thrive on our wastefulness. The more food humans throw away, the more rats multiply. The bigger the cities get, the more places they have to hide. And now, thanks to human carelessness, rats are starting to exhibit behaviors that suggest an unsettling level of intelligence. One of the most terrifying things about these new super rats is that they aren't just surviving, they're adapting. Researchers have noticed that modern rats are displaying incredible problem-solving skills, capable of learning from past mistakes, sharing information with other rats, and even avoiding human-made traps altogether. For example, in some cities, rats have learned how to deactivate spring-loaded traps. Some have even been seen working in teams, where one rat will trigger a trap while the others wait safely, learning from the mistake before trying a different approach. There have also been cases where rats have been observed biting through the wires of electronic rodent traps, disabling them completely. That's right. We now have rats that know how to sabotage our technology. In some extreme cases, rats have even started hunting in packs, a behavior that was previously thought to be impossible outside of desperate situations. Reports from abandoned cities in China, Russia, and the United States describe mass rat swarms attacking birds, small mammals, and even young domestic pets. There have been chilling videos of rats chasing pigeons in broad daylight, leaping at them like tiny furry velociraptors. And then there's the food hoarding. Unlike normal rats, which typically scavenge whatever they can find, some of these super rats have been seen dragging entire fast food bags into underground tunnels, stockpiling meals as if they're preparing for a long-term siege against humanity. It's as if they know that their battle with humans is escalating, and they're getting ready for the next phase. If you really want to see what happens when rats are left unchecked, look no further than abandoned cities and ghost towns. In places where humans have moved out due to economic collapse, war, or disaster, rats have moved in and taken over like furry landlords who demand payment in garbage. One of the most famous examples is Ordos, China, a city that was built to house over 1 million people but was eventually left mostly abandoned. With no humans around to maintain order, rats have taken over the underground tunnels, buildings, and sewage systems, creating a fully functioning rat metropolis beneath the surface. Similar situations have been reported in parts of Detroit, post-Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans, and even parts of Fukushima, Japan. In these areas, rats have essentially become the dominant species. Some reports suggest that they have formed entire underground colonies with their own rat societies, complete with different roles, assigned food gatherers, and even scouts that search for new hunting grounds. There have been reports of aggressive rat swarms attacking livestock in rural areas, forcing farmers to defend their crops and animals with extreme measures. In parts of India, rat infestations have become so severe that entire fields of crops have been devoured overnight, causing economic losses that rival those caused by locust plagues. And worst of all, these infestations are nearly impossible to stop. Exterminators can wipe out hundreds or even thousands of rats in one area, only for more to move in and repopulate at an even faster rate. At this point, humans are running out of options. Traditional poisons no longer work. Traps are being outsmarted. Urban expansion is giving rats even more places to hide and breed. And worst of all, these rats are learning. Some scientists believe that, at the rate rats are evolving, we may soon be dealing with an entirely new kind of urban predator. One that is as intelligent as it is resilient. If rats continue growing in size, increasing in intelligence, and adapting to our extermination methods, it is not impossible that in the next few decades, we may see super rats that are larger, more organized, and far more dangerous than anything we've encountered before. It's no longer just a pest problem, it's a full-blown war. Final thought, we've spent centuries trying to wipe out rats. Instead, we accidentally trained them to become the perfect survivors. If this battle continues, the future of cities may belong not to humans, but to the rats that outlasted us all. Bears used to be the beloved mascots of the wilderness, symbols of raw power, majestic solitude, and thanks to a certain animated bear in a ranger hat, the unofficial spokescreatures for responsible forest fire prevention. For centuries, these furry giants have lived at the top of the food chain, lording over their domains with an iron paw. They were apex predators, yes, but also selective eaters, preferring a diet of salmon, berries, and whatever unsuspecting camper left their snack bag unattended. But then humans did what we do best, completely ruined everything, with climate change melting their homes, habitat destruction pushing them into human settlements, and food shortages turning them from lumbering omnivores into desperate, calculating predators. Bears have changed. And not in a good way. Some species, like polar bears, have reached the ultimate breaking point and are now turning to cannibalism, eating their own kind just to stay alive. Others, particularly grizzlies and black bears, have started actively hunting humans as a viable food source. And then there's the rise of urban bears, massive, fearless trash raiders who no longer care about humans being the dominant species and are treating our cities like their personal grocery stores. We have created a monster, and now it's time to face the consequences. If there's one bear species that's having the worst time ever, it's the polar bear. For thousands of years, these snowy killing machines have been perfectly adapted to one of the most brutal environments on Earth. They are born hunters, capable of smelling a seal through 3 feet of ice, swimming for hours in freezing waters, and stalking prey with an eerie level of patience. But in the last few decades, something horrifying has happened. The Arctic has been melting at an alarming rate, and with it, the polar bear's food supply has vanished. In the good old days, polar bears would wait by holes in the ice, ambushing seals as they surfaced for air. It was a tried and true system, as reliable as a bear could hope for. But now, thanks to rising global temperatures, those ice sheets are breaking apart earlier in the year, and seals are migrating further away from hunting zones. The result? Polar bears are starving, losing massive amounts of weight, and in some cases, going completely insane with hunger. This is where things take a dark turn. When a species as powerful as the polar bear runs out of food, it doesn't just roll over and give up, it adapts. And for many, that adaptation has taken the form of cannibalism. Reports from Arctic researchers have documented more and more cases of polar bears killing and eating other polar bears, sometimes out of desperation, sometimes out of sheer survival instinct. Full-grown adult males have been seen hunting cubs, which is not normal behavior for a species that typically nurtures its young. In some areas, polar bears have been turning on each other with increasing frequency, dragging weaker bears into the icy water and devouring them to the bone. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, some starving polar bears have started following humans. Researchers working in remote Arctic outposts have reported being stalked by emaciated bears that no longer seem to view people as a threat, but rather as a meal on legs. These bears, once isolationist creatures of the tundra, are now actively wandering into human settlements, looking for anything or anyone to eat. In Russia, entire villages have been under siege by polar bears, with dozens of the massive predators invading small towns, breaking into homes and searching for food. Some have even been seen camping outside buildings, waiting patiently for an opportunity to strike, like terrifying furry assassins. While polar bears are turning to cannibalism and human hunting out of sheer starvation, their southern cousins, grizzlies and black bears, are simply evolving into bolder, more violent predators. Grizzlies were never particularly shy, but they used to at least have a healthy respect for humans. Now, thanks to habitat destruction and human expansion, grizzlies have been forced to share more and more space with us, and they are adapting in ways that should terrify everyone. In the last decade, grizzly attacks on humans have skyrocketed, not because humans are necessarily encroaching on bear territory, but because bears are actively hunting humans more than ever before. In places like Alaska, Canada, and Montana, grizzlies have begun stalking hikers, attacking campers, and even breaking into cabins in search of food. One of the most terrifying shifts in behavior is the way some bears have learned to treat humans as prey. In older cases of bear attacks, the bear would usually attack out of fear, surprise, or territorial defense. But some newer attacks show signs of predatory stalking, meaning the bears are actively hunting people, waiting for the right moment to strike. Black bears, historically less aggressive than their grizzly relatives, have also started exhibiting unprecedented boldness. They have been seen entering homes, raiding kitchens, and even dragging people out of tents in the middle of the night. One of the most shocking cases happened in Canada, where a black bear dragged a sleeping camper out of their tent and tried to eat them right outside their campground. As if cannibal polar bears and man-hunting grizzlies weren't enough, we also have a growing population of urban bears, massive, fearless animals that have learned that human civilization is the ultimate all-you-can-eat buffet. In some cities, particularly those bordering wilderness areas, bears have completely lost their fear of humans. and now roam through suburbs and urban centers as if they own the place. These bears have figured out how to open doors, break into cars, and even operate trash cans with precision. Some have learned to navigate city streets, knowing exactly when garbage trucks arrive so they can intercept fresh trash before it gets compacted. One particularly disturbing case comes from Japan, where a mysterious group of black bears has been seen hunting in organized packs, something that was previously thought to be impossible. Some scientists speculate that these bears have begun sharing hunting strategies, learning from each other how to be more effective at catching prey. And let's not forget the terrifying bears of California, where some black bears have now learned how to break into homes with surgical precision, targeting houses where they know food is available. Imagine sitting in your living room, only to have a 400-pound bear casually walk in through your front door, open your fridge, and start feasting on your leftovers while staring you dead in the eyes. If this trend continues, we could be looking at a future where bears no longer view humans as the dominant species, and instead see us as a convenient and easy meal. Polar bears will continue to invade human settlements, potentially becoming permanent Arctic scavengers that actively hunt humans. Grizzlies will become even more aggressive and expand their range into new areas. Black bears will continue evolving urban survival skills, potentially becoming as comfortable in cities as raccoons, but far more dangerous. We have pushed these animals to the edge, and now they are pushing back. Final thought. We once feared that bears would lose their habitats because of us. Instead, they adapted. And now, we're the ones running out of places to hide. Once upon a time, wolves were the misunderstood villains of folklore, accused of eating grandmothers, terrorizing villages, and generally being up to no good. In reality, they were nature's perfectly balanced predators, keeping deer populations in check and living by the ancient rule of hunt only what you need. They were powerful but fair, fearsome but reclusive, and for centuries they thrived in their carefully carved-out wilderness territories. Then humans happened, and as history has repeatedly shown, when humans meddle with nature, the results are rarely a heartwarming Disney movie. Instead of allowing wolves to follow the laws of nature, we hunted them, destroyed their habitats, experimented with breeding, and, worst of all, accidentally created monstrous hybrid wolves that are now bigger, bolder, and increasingly interested in humans as prey. Congratulations, humanity! We took one of the most intelligent and efficient predators on Earth and made it even deadlier. Welcome to the nightmare of Frankenstein wolves. If you think wolves are still the sleek, medium-sized hunters of yesteryear, think again. In remote regions of Russia, Canada, and even parts of Scandinavia, scientists and hunters alike have reported wolves growing to sizes never before seen in recorded history. Wolves that dwarf German shepherds, outweigh mountain lions, and have started operating in packs so large they resemble coordinated military units. The culprit behind this phenomenon? Human interference in their environment. For decades, we hunted and poisoned wolves to near extinction, particularly in Russia and Canada, where wolves were seen as a major threat to livestock. In the Soviet era, Russia waged an all-out war on wolves, using everything from traps and poisons to full-scale helicopter attacks to reduce their numbers. It worked for a while, but when wolf populations plummeted, something unexpected happened. The few wolves that survived were the biggest, strongest, and smartest. With their weaker competitors wiped out, only the genetic elites remained, which meant that future generations of wolves were, on average, larger and more resilient than ever before. Meanwhile, in Canada, mass deforestation and urban expansion pushed wolf populations into new, unfamiliar territories where they had to adapt quickly or die. With prey species such as caribou and moose disappearing, some wolf packs began targeting livestock, dogs, and even humans. In parts of northern Canada, wolves have been caught stalking humans over long distances, following them for miles, waiting for an opportunity to strike, behavior that was previously unheard of in healthy wolf populations. The results? Today, the largest wolves on record are being found in these areas, with some specimens reaching over 200 pounds, nearly double the size of a standard grey wolf. Some of these mega wolves are now capable of taking down full-grown moose on their own, a feat that usually requires an entire pack. And speaking of packs, they're not just getting bigger in size, they're getting bigger in numbers too. In a normal, well-balanced ecosystem, wolf packs are relatively small, typically ranging from 6 to 10 members. Packs of this size are ideal for efficient hunting while keeping internal conflict to a minimum. But in certain regions, particularly Siberia and northern Canada, wolf packs have started growing out of control, with some groups reaching over 400 members. Yes, you read that correctly. 400 wolves. To put that into perspective, a regular wolf pack can take down a single deer or elk. A super pack of 400 wolves? They could wipe out entire villages if they wanted to. This isn't some horror movie script. It's already happening. In Siberia, one of the largest wolf packs ever recorded attacked an entire town, forcing authorities to issue emergency hunting permits to defend against the invasion. The local wildlife population had collapsed, forcing the wolves to seek out new food sources. And when their usual prey vanished, they turned to the next available option: humans and their livestock. Meanwhile, in Canada, some wolf packs have adapted pack hunting techniques that resemble military ambush tactics. They've learned to herd prey into traps, use decoys to distract their targets, and even coordinate their movements to maximize efficiency. What's driving this behavior? Simple. Wolves are adapting to human-made problems. Habitat loss and food scarcity are pushing them to evolve in ways that make them deadlier, more intelligent, and more willing to take risks. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, let's talk about wolf-dog hybrids. If wolves weren't scary enough on their own, humans have done what humans always do: made things even worse by accidentally creating hybrid predators that are even more unpredictable. Meet the wolf-dog hybrid, a genetic wildcard that combines the raw power of a wolf with the unpredictability of a domestic dog. Wolf-dog hybrids are increasing in numbers, particularly in areas where feral dogs have interbred with wild wolf populations. In some cases, these hybrids inherit the best or worst traits of both species. They're often larger than normal wolves, but because they have a mix of wolf and dog behavior, they can be extremely aggressive toward humans. Unlike regular wolves, which tend to avoid direct human encounters, wolf-dog hybrids can be fearless, reckless, and highly unpredictable. What's worse is that they are spreading fast. Unlike pure wolves, which have a relatively slow reproductive cycle, wolf-dog hybrids breed faster and more frequently, leading to rapid population explosions. These hybrids are already appearing in parts of Russia, Canada, and the United States, with reports of them attacking livestock, invading urban areas, and even forming hybrid packs that are more aggressive than traditional wolf packs. Scientists fear that, over time, these hybrids could create a new dominant predator, one that is bigger, smarter, and more dangerous than either of its parent species. If wolves continue growing in size, forming super packs, and interbreeding with domestic dogs, the future of human-wolf relations may never be the same. We are witnessing the evolution of a new type of apex predator, one that has been shaped not by nature but by human interference. Some scientists are now warning that if these trends continue, wolves could become a permanent, unchecked threat in some regions. Certain populations are already learning how to exploit human behavior, meaning that future wolves may no longer fear humans at all. In a worst-case scenario, we could be looking at a world where wolves and wolf-dog hybrids actively hunt humans as part of their survival strategy. And if the super packs keep growing, well, let's just say that running into a wolf pack in the future might not be an encounter you walk away from. Final thought. For centuries, humans feared wolves because of myths and fairy tales. But now, thanks to our own reckless actions, we have created a real monster. The question is, can we stop it before it's too late? Well, congrats, humanity. We took nature's scariest predators and accidentally gave them superpowers. Now we have radioactive crocodiles, genius rats, crime boss wolves, and cannibal bears roaming the planet like it's their villain origin story. But guess what? These aren't the only monsters we've unleashed. There are more terrifying, mind-blowing creatures out there thanks to human stupidity, and we're exposing them all. So if you love insane, real-life horror stories about nature fighting back, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And remember, next time you hear rustling in the bushes, it's probably not the wind.